Breaking this morning, emergency landing. A Qantas flight bound for Perth abandons takeoff and returns to Sydney. The airline blaming a technical fault. Developing now, southeast Queensland on cyclone watch. Alfred powering up when it's expected to hit. Crossroads of history. Europe rallies around Ukraine. King Charles sitting down with President Zelensky. New this morning, up in flames. A church in Melbourne burns. Arson under investigation. The Vegas Four start the journey home to Australia after rugby league dazzles in the United States. And just you and I, the wicked opening to the Oscars as the biggest night in Hollywood gets started.
This is 9 News with Kate Creedon.
Good morning. We're going to get straight to that breaking news at Sydney Airport, where a Qantas flight has made an emergency landing. QF 643 bound for Perth turned around just minutes after taking off, declaring an onboard emergency. The Boeing 737 made a loop over the ocean off Sydney after its altitude peaked at just under 4,000 metres, landing safely and returning to the gate. Qantas tells us there was smoke in the cockpit following takeoff, which led to the priority landing. The smoke was restricted to the cockpit and did not enter the cabin. European leaders have reaffirmed their backing of Ukraine at a key meeting in London. Jessica Millwood has the details.
Well, it's been a really significant day here in London. Sir Keir Starmer emerging from these crisis talks to declare that they are at a crossroads in history and the time to act is now, telling European leaders they need to step up to not only ensure the future security of Ukraine, but all of the continent as well.
We are at a crossroads in history today. This is not a moment for more talk. It's time to act. Time to step up and lead.
Keir Starmer recommitting UK boots on the ground in Ukraine if a peace deal can be done, but saying it's not good enough for there to be a ceasefire. It needs to be a deal that will endure for the decades to come, adding that it does need the backing of the US. The Prime Minister then committing $3.2 billion for Ukraine to purchase 5,000 air defence missiles, saying a coalition of the willing will be established and that countries who can need to contribute and take more ownership for the future security of Europe. After these crunch talks, President Zelensky then flew by chopper to Sandringham, where he met with King Charles for around 1 hour. He then answered questions before flying back to Ukraine, trying to calm tensions with the US. Meanwhile, in America, the top officials who asked President Zelensky to leave the White House have weighed in, dismissing claims that the Oval Office showdown was an ambush.
Coming to the Oval Office, with the body language, the shaking of head, the kind of the arms crossed, we found it incredibly disrespectful.
He found every opportunity to try to Ukraine-splain on every issue.
And while all this delicate diplomacy played out here in London, in the US, the president made a surprise appearance with Elon Musk at a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser, dancing along a catwalk.
Fire has ripped through a church in South Melbourne this morning. The flames broke out in the rear of the building before quickly spreading to the chapel's roof, causing significant structural damage. Investigators are treating the fire as suspicious. Federal government ministers are in Canberra today for what could be the last cabinet meeting before the Prime Minister calls an election. Live to federal politics reporter Amanda Kopp. Amanda, what's Anthony Albanese had to say?
Kate, the Prime Minister has been addressing his colleagues in the cabinet room this morning, spruiking his government's plans to boost funding for Medicare and urgent care clinics. But as we get closer to this year's election, it's looking increasingly likely that issues further from Australian shores could dominate the campaign. It's been a political week focused on Chinese warships circling Australia's coast, Donald Trump and Ukraine. The Prime Minister today reiterating Australia's support for the war-torn country following that disastrous meeting between President Trump and Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky.
The brave people of Ukraine, led so extraordinarily by President Zelensky, are fighting not just for their national sovereignty and for their democracy, they are fighting for the international rule of law.
This is a bigger war. This is not just Russia's war against Ukraine. That's an assault on the global democracies.
I think that while political leaders won't want to discuss Trump per se, Trump's a bit like the weather. He'll be there. He'll be part of the backdrop to the election.
This morning, according to Redbridge polling, 2/3 of voters want a leader who can effectively manage Australia's relationship with Donald Trump. But more voters think that Peter Dutton would be better at managing the US president than Anthony Albanese. While tradition holds that Australians don't tend to change their votes based on foreign policy, we've never seen a world quite like it is right now. Kate?
Amanda Kopp, thank you. Pope Francis has released a statement from hospital thanking well-wishers as he continues to battle respiratory issues. Hannah Sinclair has the latest from Rome.
Pope Francis has spent his 17th day in hospital, and for the 3rd week in a row he was absent here at St Peter's Square, where today he usually would have recited prayers in person to worshippers. So the Vatican has shared a special message from him. The Pope saying, "I am still sending you these thoughts from the hospital," accompanied by doctors and healthcare professionals whom I thank for the attention with which they are taking care of me. I feel in my heart the blessing that is hidden within frailty. I would like to thank you for the prayers. I feel all your affection and closeness. I pray for you too, and I pray above all for peace. From here, war appears even more absurd. He then asked for everyone to pray for several countries currently at war. The Pope received a visit from 2 top Vatican officials, and we're being told he remains in a stable condition, but the Vatican still isn't revealing his prognosis.
Let's turn now to the other big story of the day. Cyclone Alfred right now looming over the Pacific Ocean, threatening to impact Queensland's southeast. In a moment, we'll speak to the Weather Bureau. But first, let's go live to Claire Todd-Hunter in Brisbane. Claire, it's a nervous wait for residents across southeast Queensland.
Yeah, it really is. We've been trying to reach a sandbagging station this morning, but they are getting busier and busier in the lead up to Cyclone Alfred making landfall. As you can see, there are long lines of traffic behind us as it is now expected to make landfall on the Sunshine Coast. The Bureau of Meteorology releasing updated modelling this morning that shows it crossing at Alexandra Headland at around 6 p.m. on Thursday. That is still being updated regularly though, and that path changing as well, and it will no doubt change again. Yesterday it was on track for a crossing right through the heart of Brisbane. At this stage there is no official cyclone warning in place, although that could be issued as soon as today. The entire, or a large stretch rather, of the Queensland coastline from Bundaberg right down to the Gold Coast on alert, with residents told to do as much as they can now to prepare in the lead up. David Crisafulli, our Premier, spoke to the Today Show this morning.
Now's the time to do the preparation around your home. Now's the time to clear the gutters and make sure that you don't have things lying around. Now's the time to get your family ready. Talk to your neighbours. Make sure that you've got batteries and make sure you've got water and have your documents in one location.
Meantime, the Royal Australian Navy has successfully rescued a Lithuanian rower this morning who had been caught up in Cyclone Alfred out in the Coral Sea. They got to Aramis Moxkus just a few hours ago. Meantime, a tropical cyclone Alfred has also re-intensified from a Category 1 to a Category 2 storm.
OK, let's bring in Senior Meteorologist Sarah Scully with the Weather Bureau. Sarah, we're not expecting Alfred. Oh, I'm sorry, we have lost Sarah. We're just going to move on to our next story. Still ahead on 9's Morning News. The stars have arrived. The envelopes are sealed. We're live from the Oscars as Hollywood's best take centre stage. Returning to the latest on Tropical Cyclone Alfred, Senior Meteorologist Sarah Scully at the Weather Bureau joins me. Sarah, as we heard earlier, we're not expecting Alfred to make landfall until Thursday. What conditions are we likely to see as it approaches?
Yeah, look, the latest track map may indicate it will be later Thursday, potentially even Friday, that we'll see that coastal crossing. And with it, we're expecting impacts to extend across southeast parts of Queensland, but into northeastern parts of New South Wales as well. There will be a tropical cyclone watch that will be issued shortly, and that will extend all the way from Sandy Cape down into just north of Grafton, but not including Grafton, for gale force winds to start to develop from as early as Wednesday evening. Now, with the crossing of the cyclone, we're expecting damaging to destructive winds, heavy rainfall, flooding and storm tides. So big impacts expected for southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales.
What about on Thursday when that system does move towards the coast? How strong is it forecast to be, and where do you expect it'll cross at this stage?
On Thursday, we're expecting the gale force winds, so sustained winds in excess of 60 kilometres or 63 kilometres per hour across the mainland within that tropical cyclone watch area. And at this stage, we're forecasting the track for it to cross the coast somewhere between Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast. Now, we are updating that track map every 6 hours as we get more information as how Alfred is behaving, but at the moment the actual the crossing we seem to be having more confidence with, but the timing is we're a little bit more uncertain for.
Yeah, of course we know that residents across 2 states have been told that they could be facing very significant flooding, heavy rain. I mean, how significant could this be?
Well, look, we're expecting the rain to start to develop during Wednesday and building on Thursday, peaking on Friday and potentially even Saturday, where we'll see rainfall totals anywhere between 200 to 400 millimetres, daily rainfall totals of 200 to 400 millimetres. So, and that will be coinciding with a storm surge. So there is the potential for significant flooding, and for that reason we do have flood watches out for the potential for minor to major flooding across the region.
Sarah Scully from the Bureau of Meteorology, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the Oscars are underway with a brand new host, but
no
not
worries,
before
bye.
the stars paraded the red carpet in a theme of bold and beautiful. Live now to US correspondent Jonathan Kersley in Los Angeles. Jono, it wasn't to be for our Guy Pearce.
In the Brutalist, that award just moments ago going to Kieran Culkin, who has really cleaned up this entire award season. Jubilant, he hugged his wife and then made his way onto the stage where he said that there was a promise his wife had made that they would have a 4th child if he ever won an Oscar, and that did happen. Here you can see some of the glitz and glamour from the red carpet as the stars made their way in earlier on before the show began. We've also just had word through, sadly not to be also, for Australian Adam Elliott, who was up with Liz Carney for animated feature film for Memoir of a Snail. They sadly missing out in that Oscar category. But this is a show that has already delivered plenty of laughs. Plenty were promised, and there's been plenty of surprises in store too. Host Conan O'Brien, who's on stage for the first time, really poking some fun at himself, at the duration of the show, at the length of the speeches that are likely tonight. He promises a packed show, but it is going to be certainly one to watch. There's Timothée Chalamet, who is up for Best Actor for his outstanding performance as Bob Dylan in the Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. Adrian Brody, you can see there, he goes in as favourite tonight for the Best Actor category. You would have to suggest for The Brutalist, just a stunning performance from him. And then when it comes to the Best Picture, well, that will likely be the last award of the evening, and it is going to be The Brutalist and Anora very much high in the mix as the favourites going into tonight. Conclave featuring Ray Fiennes also up. Look at some of these outfits, though, that really made their way through the red carpet. Dazzling there, you can see Edward Norton there as the star of the Wicked movie. And that is how this show began, in a very wicked way. There they were, defying gravity with that great hit to open the show. And yes, it's underway, a few hours to go until it all ends. But this is Hollywood's Night of Nights. Let's see what else is in store.
A fabulous night ahead. Jonathan Kersley, thank you. Coming up on Nine's Morning News, Brittany Higgins shares the first glimpse of her newborn after announcing the birth of her baby with husband David Shiraz. Homeward bound the Las Vegas teams start their journey home after a weekend to remember in the US. And why the AFL is watching Cyclone Alfred very carefully ahead of opening round. The Rabbitohs are preparing to enter the new NRL season without two of their biggest stars. Captain Cam Murray is recovering from Achilles surgery, while Latrell Mitchell will miss up to 8 weeks with a hamstring injury.
We handled it really well. Obviously, it happened in a 5-minute sort of span at training with losing Camo and Latrell, so we had to move on pretty quickly. We feel like we've done that, and those boys will do all they can to get their rehabilitation done, and then we'll be, we'll be more than likely to hopefully have those boys back as soon as possible.
The Rabbitohs face the Dolphins in Nine's Friday night football. The Las Vegas teams are heading home, leaving their hotels a short time ago. Sharks captain Cam McInnes says despite losing to the Panthers, it was a successful trip for the club.
When you play footy and you have a loss, right, it's sort of everything in your life gets affected to a degree. Obviously, we're hurting after yesterday, but if you reflect upon the whole experience, it's been amazing and such a good time as a team together, cool experiences. So all in all, you can't fault it, but obviously just that little bitter taste in our mouth.
All 4 teams will have this weekend off before returning in round 2. The AFL launched opening round this morning at the Sydney Opera House with 4 teams, including Premiers Brisbane, to begin their season this weekend. Clint Stanaway was there.
It is a massive curveball for the AFL to negotiate as it launches opening round here in Sydney. Basically, the league right now is in the lap of the gods in many respects. They're on weather watch because of this cyclone. Alfred is tipped to make landfall somewhere around Brisbane on Thursday. That's just hours out from the Gabba fixture. There's early projections of fierce winds up to 130 kilometres an hour along with heavy rain, and it's got the AFL just a touch edgy.
Our opening game is a big game, but it's not the main game. I think the main game at this stage is for us to be in contact with the Queensland Government, the Bureau of Meteorology, and where the main game is actually that the people of South East Queensland and North New South Wales are safe.
In a throwback to the COVID days, the league will need to be quite nimble. They're in constant contact with Queensland authorities. Put simply, if it comes to it, they'll need to take action, maybe as late as lunchtime on Thursday, including a rescheduling of that match during the round 3 bye.
For every game we have contingencies, and there are options with byes and the like, but at the moment the game's scheduled for Thursday night, and the Lions are working towards that, as are Geelong and as are the AFL and Channel 7.
It's overshadowed what's meant to be the AFL's big chance to pounce with the NRL out of town in Vegas. Still, the Swans, Giants, Hawks and Magpies are relishing this opportunity.
It's a game you look forward to, and mini rivalries in the AFL make the game so great as a player and as a spectator, so it's not a super personal, lippy one when we're out there. It's just, it's kind of, it's a fun one that's, it's not worth looking too much into, but it's always just a fiery contest.
So just 3 days now until the footy is officially back, but for those at AFL HQ, unfortunately, a few sleepless nights ahead.
The Dockers have wrapped up the community series in style. Fremantle beating Melbourne by 19 points in Mandurah. Sonny Walters kicked 3 goals and recruit Shea Bolton booted 2. The Dockers face the Cats in Geelong in round 1. Australia will face India in the Champions Trophy semi-finals tomorrow. It comes after the Indians finished in top spot of their group thanks to a 44-run win over New Zealand. The Aussies have also made a change to their squad. Cooper Connolly coming in for the injured Matt Short.
It's nice to be in Dubai. We've obviously had a bit of a hectic schedule, playing a couple of games in Pakistan, back and forth in between cities, but I think with the nature of this tournament, not knowing where we are for this first semi-final, it's kind of nice to get here. We've got a great facility here at the ICC Academy.
Meanwhile, South Africa will now head back to Pakistan and play the Kiwis in the other semi-final on Wednesday. It's been a golden morning for Adelaide at Winter Sport World Cup events. Olympian Laura Peel taking out the aerials event in Kazakhstan with fellow Aussie Danielle Scott claiming bronze. While in Turkey, the Aussies claimed an historic gold in the mixed snowboard cross with Josie Bath and Cameron Bolton both crossing the line in their runs. Former Liberal staffer Brittany Higgins and husband David Shiraz have announced the birth of their first child, a boy. A love heart sticker used to cover the little one's identity on an Instagram post. The couple say they're looking forward to doting on the little fella. Stay with us. Your weather details are next as we take a look at Sydney. Taking a look at the weather forecast now around the country today. Brisbane, a possible shower 31, Sydney 26, Canberra 28, Melbourne 22 degrees, 21 the top for Hobart, Adelaide sunny 30 degrees, 28 in Perth and partly cloudy in Darwin, a top of 34 there. And that is 9's Morning News. We'll be back at 4 p.m. with your afternoon news. I'm Kate Creedon. Thanks for your company. See you soon.